All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for Tales from the Trenches, Lessons Learned from Winning and Losing Competitive Deals. We have a killer panel for you guys. So I'm going to hand it over to the experts shortly. But before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. John, if you want to give me a flip here. This webinar is being recorded, so you will be emailed a recording of the webinar within 24 hours. We'll be emailing it out to everybody who registered. Feel free to share it with the rest of your team. And then we want this to be really interactive. We want to answer a lot of your questions. We've left a bunch of time at the end to answer questions, so feel free, as questions pop up, to be sending them right into that Q&A box so that at the end we can be answering all of your questions. All right, so before I kick things over to our host, John, we wanted to put a poll up just so that everybody can be answering this poll as John is giving our introductions. So the panel is curious to know what percentage of your deals have competitors in them. So I'm going to launch this poll and feel free to kind of be answering that as John is giving introductions to our awesome panel. And then we will kind of once he does intros, I'll let everybody know sort of what everybody answered and what that looks like. So in the meantime, without further ado, I will turn things over to John.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. And welcome, everybody. We have got three absolutely extraordinary sales and marketing leaders to help you understand how to deal with this competitive environment. I'm going to start left to right. So Dan Wardle is with Vidyard. You're all familiar with those guys. He's been with them since I think he was 6 years old. It actually self-described as 8 people in a house. He leads all go-to-market and channels over there. So anything related to SDs or whatever you got, he's got control over it. He's got some interesting background as well. Spent a little bit of time at a company called BlackBerry and a little bit of time at Salesforce. So welcome, Dan. In the middle here, we have an old friend of mine, Zach Rego. Zach is going to come to you because he has held every single role possible that you could have in the battle of winning competitive deals. He's been an SDR, he's been a BDR, he's been a sales executive, he's been a sales leader. He's now done pretty much everything imaginable. Now leading sales and marketing for a company called Unstack, which is a no-code marketing platform. And he's one of the brightest people I've ever met. So welcome, Zachary.
Thank you for having me, John.
Pleasure. And lastly, Anna Fisher is the CMO at a company called Spiff, which is a really cool organization around organizing your compensation structure. So anybody out there, give it a good listen. She's got a cool role. She's not only responsible for marketing, but she runs the SDR team at Spiff as well. So she's worried about top of funnel. She's worried about bottom of funnel. And like everybody else here on this, she's had an extraordinary background as well. Had a nice run at ZoomInfo for 8 years. I think most of you are familiar with those guys. A couple of acquisitions and an IPO. And she's responsible for, as I said before, like making sure top of funnel is getting filled up and that conversion and all that other good stuff is happening at the bottom. So she's got a lot of insights as well around like how do you go deal with the nitty gritty of winning competitive deals. So welcome on.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So we wanted to get this started before we get into some specific questions. And as Maggie mentioned, getting into specific questions from all of you here today. I'm going to ask Dan and Zach and Anna to think a little bit about and reflect on, looking back, like what was rocking in last year and what wasn't, and how are you kind of folding that into your thinking for this year? I'll let any of you decide how you want to come in on this one.
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. So as probably most people know, Vidyard video selling, it's pretty new. Really, the pandemic has made the growth accelerate a crazy amount. And so 2021 was our first year of just having a gazillion different competitors showing up everywhere in every deal, and the team freaking out about them and trying to figure out how to address their concerns. And there was a lot of, just unrest within the team of figuring out how to do that last year. So that's one of our big focuses this year, is like let's make sure we understand what our value prop is, why we can benefit our customers more than others, and focus on those key points. So that's what our plan is this year.
Cool.
I'll
about you?
echo that. Yeah, I'll echo that. So this past year, we had a really great year. I'm very proud of what the team has accomplished. We consider ourselves a new class of software. So we handle the problem, a problem that's existed for a very long time, just very differently. So we have some competitors out there that have existed for a long time. There have been a few new competitors that are kind of popping through. And so it's been a little bit up and down, right? Where our win rates were incredible at the beginning of the year as some new competitors come up. There's a bit of more noise. So just trying to keep the team pretty focused on what we do really well. A lot happening in 2022, really focused on, building out the team to make sure that organizations are armed with the best insights, how we win.
Yeah, it's never changing. It's always frothy. Zach, how about your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think one thing that happened, and Dan, you probably saw this, is the persona that we were selling to evolved a little bit. And Dan, I think a lot of folks probably transitioned to video sales or using some sort of video tool, which is great. Your total addressable market probably expanded over the last couple of years. And I feel like we've at Unstack had to think about who we're targeting as a customer base. New businesses are popping up, new industries are popping up that were really successful for us, which meant we had to learn how to position our product quickly against other competitors that maybe we weren't going up against historically, where we might have targeted a SaaS founder for a long time. And then we transitioned really quickly to targeting solopreneurs, and the competitors are super different in those two spaces. So that was really challenging. I think our plan in 2022 is to continue to evolve those product lines, continue to line up where we win. And then I think also, now that we've kind of sold all these personas, focus who we want to sell to and who are our best customers that we want to continue to double down on.
Love it. Love it. Great start. Great start, everybody. Thank you. All right, so let's pause for a second here. Maggie, what we got results of our poll?
Yeah, absolutely. I will pop these results up here so that everybody can see, but it looks like overwhelmingly the answers were that there is above 50% of deals have direct competitors in them, which is awesome to hear, because why everybody's here is why everybody wants to learn. So great to see that.
All right, so let's talk about how we kick some ass here, because we are obviously talking to a lot of people here today who have got this as an issue. So my favorite one of the day, I'm sorry, we're coming out hot. My favorite one of the day: at what stage are opportunities won and lost? Because there are a lot of salespeople out there who suddenly show up when the contract isn't signed, and we just lost. Like, oh, sure, it gets lost at the end of the deal. But when does it really happen? Like, Zach, what are your thoughts on this one? Like, when is it really won or lost?
Yeah, I learned this probably a little bit later in my sales career. I wish I would have learned a little earlier, but I think the discovery is incredibly important. So before you're even on a demo, you kind of got to know what are those objections that you're going to hit, and be almost not avoiding them, but like ready to encounter them and prepared to encounter them. So you're asking the right questions to gather enough information when the stakes aren't super high and maybe the prospect's guard's down, to really understand, hey, if there's going to be a budget concern, where have they spent budget in the past? How much budget is available? Because it's difficult to have a budget conversation when the price is already out there. So you want to start to tee these things up early in that discovery. And really that starts with preparation. So not only do I ask the right questions, but I need to position those questions appropriately based on who I'm speaking with within the organization, who this company is, and maybe what tools they are using today. And then I think the last one from a preparation perspective, try to uncover who else they're looking at as early in that sales process as possible, because they typically have to look at more than one. I always like to present last, so I'm a stickler. If we've booked a meeting too fast, I might even ask my sales rep to maybe reschedule for a little bit later and understand who else is in the process, because going early is challenging and the value diminishes with every passing day. So it's really important to start to think about those things early in the sales process.
So you're a big disco call. That's where it gets won or lost, or certainly positioned better. Loved your conversation about prep and being ready. Dan, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with Zach. It's all in that first call, whether it's our SMB team that essentially really does a 2-call close. So it's even more pronounced for them. But the folks on the enterprise side, it's still the same thing. You know, you've got to ask those hard questions. So specifically in that first call, you're doing that dance of like trying to get them to agree to the next call, but you also need to ask the hard questions. And if you're not asking, like I loved your question on what other products have you bought before? That's like a secret way of saying, do you actually have buying power? And so you can start asking those questions up front. So we have like templated questions that we have in our like note-taking app to make sure that people are asking, you know, what purchase have you done before? Who owns this budget? Who else is going to be involved? What competitors are you looking at? What is the, you know, process going to look like? You got to ask those on the first call, because if you do it after the demo, they may have just been there to like look and they didn't bring the right people to the demos. Then you just wasted your own time. And that's all the salespeople have to control is like, how are you spending your day? And so get those really tough. You know, it may end up that they don't get the second meeting and that's not a qualified opportunity, but at least you didn't waste your time on the next call and the call after that before you asked that hard question. So have that's kind of my suggestion, is have those questions in a template so that the rep has to ask them. And we've even implemented some fields on the op using MedPick and competitors to force them that they can't move it to stage 2 until they answer those questions.
Yeah, I love that, Dan. I used to have, and if any of my former reps who were also John's former reps are listening to this, they're going to hate it, but we used to have that same like checklist. Like you don't move on to the next stage until you can answer these 4 questions for me as the sales lead. If we're going to sit down and I'm going to hop on a call, like you better have all of those answered. And I think
The
that's
dreaded
critical.
exit criteria, baby. You got to have the
Yeah.
exit criteria is going. Anna, how about you? Any further thoughts on this one? Because this one feels like fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So I agree with Dan. And I often, you know, so we allow our SDRs to open opportunities on behalf of the sales reps, and which means that they can be lost before a rep can actually, you know, have their opportunity to talk to them. And anytime that happens, to me, that's a terrible discovery. That's bad qualification. Like they should not, the deal shouldn't have been lost before we even had a chance to win it, in my opinion. And so we also have MedPick and STC and a few other sort of, we'll call them processes, not specifically methodologies, where we are starting to force a lot more of that focused activity so that we can get a better sense of our metrics and, you know, at what point do we even have a sense of who else is in the deal potentially, and are they even interested in what we have to sell? A lot of the opportunities coming through are coming inbound. And so we do have different conversion metrics based on, you know, if they are coming to us because of any marketing initiatives or if it's more outbound focused. And so we see people move through the stages a little bit differently, and trying to use that data to really adjust our sales process and hopefully lose less.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And Dan's point of hey, as a salesperson, as a sales professional, your time's just as valuable as the person you're speaking to. And I love the like it's okay to lose early. Like if you're gonna lose early.
Yes.
You know, one other point I'll add as I'm getting my screen cranked back up here again is active listening. That you know, you're going to hear stuff in that discovery call, and sometimes you're going to hear the words of your competitor, and you've got to have your team tuned into what was that phrase they just used? Wait a minute, that's the byline on one of my like. Tell me more. Why did you say that? Dig that out early if you can. So that active listening, having the guts to say, hey, time out a second here. Can we unpack that a little bit? Awesome. Love it. Great start. Okay. How important is it for you to know what your competitors are up to versus really staying on course with your message? And I think you gotta help us out with this one here, because you know you're the message leader here and the bottom of the funnel leader. How important is this?
It's to me, it's super important. I mean, we just had our CKO. I'm actually traveling on my way back from our CKO. We had a company kickoff, not just a sales kickoff. And a big part of that was our message, like, how are we better? And obviously we want to be aware of how our competitors are coming to play. There's specific keywords. I think you just mentioned it, John, specific keywords that we listen for that our competitors use. So when we hear our client asking specific questions, right? Like, all right, we just need to be aware that we know they're in the deal, but not focus on them. Because at the end of the day, the reason that we have an opportunity to show a demo or talk to them is they're looking at us as well. And so if we focus our attention and effort primarily on what the competitors are doing, we've lost our opportunity to show them how we shine. And there's a reason we're in business, right? If there was absolutely no key differentiators or ways we were better, we just wouldn't exist. And so we really need to focus on just how we win, how we solve the problem differently, how we can, and listen for those keywords and explain how we can solve the client's problem, not how a competitor can do it. Again, we need to know that knowledge to make sure that we're not, sounding ignorant. But really, again, I'm a strong believer in, like, let's focus on us.
And how do you find that balance between, staying on message, staying where you want to be, but you're getting broadsided a little, you're getting nicked along the way, and you just really want to turn around and go, like, they can't do that.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance?
I honestly think it's a lot of confidence in the sales process, confidence from the rep. If the rep is confident and they believe that we are the best, you can tell from listening to calls, you can tell them being on calls who those reps are, because they stay the course. There are reps who, they're like, oh, wait, you said a competitor's name, like reverse, no, we're better. Like, we're adults here, right? Like, when you listen to that, when I hear that on calls, I always think about my kids arguing about something. Like, that's what I hear is a bunch of, like, it's, and we tried to sort of show that message. I found a video once to show our sales team with literally kids arguing. Like, this is what it sounds like to me. Like, I know it's, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, like, at the end of the day, as a client, and I purchase many solutions, that's what I feel like. I'm like, oh, you're on the attack. Like, I'm just trying to understand how you're different. I'm asking a question because I'm genuinely interested on this random little feature because someone's told me it's important. If you don't have it, tell me why it's not important. Tell me how you're solving the problem differently, right? Each one of us has a technology or a solution that exists for a reason. And our reps need to be really proud and confident that we have the solution, or admit we don't.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day,
I love put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, and what kind of experience do they want?
Yeah. And if we sold a product that is not what the customer actually needs, one, they're going to churn. Two, they're going to be unhappy. Like, that's not a good experience for our brand at all. And so, again, I'm a strong believer in, like, staying the course. Of course, again, having the competitive intel and knowing, what the competitor might say, or and having a good response of how we're better. But again, really focusing on us.
Awesome.
I think
Jump in, Zach.
Yeah, I was just going to say the big thing I always try to coach reps to do there is ask an open-ended question. How are you going to use that feature, or why is that feature important? And try to really understand the use case for it, because sometimes it's not, the feature that the competitor has isn't applicable for their use case, or it is, and we can't solve it. But that's how you really uncover that little piece and can usually position yourself appropriately. So I really like to get reps back to, like, how or why are they going to use that? And if they need it, let's solve it for them. And if we can't, let's be transparent about that, but reposition to where we can win.
I love that, Dan. I mean, I'm sorry, Zach, I totally agree. I think at the end of the day, why do you need that? Or what do you need? Or what's the problem we're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah. Dan, you want to jump in here too, kid?
Yeah, there was one thing you mentioned in there that actually Zach just basically said what I was going to jump in with, but it's like, I always follow Sandler's methodology on the pendulum. And so when that comes up, you ask the why, you understand what the business value is they're going to get out of it, and be like, wow, that's, it seems like that might be a pretty big part of your needs. Is it worth continuing the conversation if you think that's going to be a big part of what you need? And so you're just kind of saying, like, oh, maybe this isn't a deal for me. And then inevitably that pendulum will swing back. And we, luckily had that the other day. So this is where it's key to know where your competitors actually do beat you. Because you can just say, like, yeah, actually they're better at, live event hosting, that's not Vidyard's strength. So if that's what you need, it might be better, if you want to chat with them some more. And then they come back 2 weeks later and they're like, you know what, that's actually not our main need. We really need more of our sales tool. Like, let's move forward. So I'm a big fan of Sandler's pendulum method. There's some stuff I don't love with Sandler, but I like that part.
Love it. I love it. So it is important to stay on message. It's absolutely important. It's important to know what your competitors are up to. But what I heard across the board is the power of questioning, the power of challenging, and the power of sort of digging out how important that particular competitive issue or whatever it is, to see, hey, is this something we shouldn't be doing? Or did we get somebody to fess up? No, I'm just doing feature comparison and I really don't care about that. Cool. Well done. Well done. All right, here we go. This is sort of the leadership one that we're going to lean in on a little bit here. So how do you incorporate these kinds of learnings around winning and losing into your cadence for education improvement? And, some of us are in more frothy environments. And how do you handle that when there are tons of competitors? Like Dan, at the top, you mentioned, man, your market is exploding, but sort of everybody kind of wants in some way, shape, or that. How are you doing this at Vidyard?
Yeah, it's been a tough one this year to figure out how to bring it into education. If we think our competitor list, when you can select in Salesforce, we're up to about 40 people now, 40 different companies that come up in deals, because we also have our marketing use case. So we kind of have two different competitors. And so what we have to do is say, what are the 5 that we're going to enable on? Because we can never enable on all these other ones. And then we bucket the other ones into, simple video for sales, or simple video creation, simple video hosting. And then the top 5, that's when we get into like, okay, they're better at live events, they're better at this. Then you can get into the feature by feature and those, your biggest ones. And we use our quarterly review to see what the reps have selected. Like I mentioned, it's mandatory when you get to stage 2 that you should have asked already who else they're looking at and have some ideas in there. Annoyingly, half the time it's our own free product that ends up at the top of that list, but we're working on that. And then we get into, okay, how do we incorporate this? Instead of doing a dedicated CI presentation, although my reps actually keep asking for it, we just keep not doing it. We build it into our coaching. It's like, okay, let's do this call review where you competed against XYZ and talk about how we could have done better, and then use the points from product marketing to implement in there. Because when you do a CI session, I just find, back when I was a rep and now, you forget after, because there's so much information thrown at you. You just can't remember every feature from every competitor you have, depending on how many you have.
I like that. I like being selective. Like let's pick the ones that really matter and get after that. Ani, you just came from a company kickoff where I would imagine this was a little bit of a topic of discussion. How'd you manage through that?
It was. So we also picked, our top competitors, and we split them into 2 groups. So we call them like the legacy players, the ones that have been around but somehow haven't solved the problem. Obviously, I'm biased there. And then some of the newer solutions that are coming through. And we split this up based on our win losses. So the ones that we potentially could lose to, and the ones that are creeping through or starting to show up. And we really spent a lot of our time and effort focused on those ones. So we had 2 separate sessions during our, 2.5-day event. So a lot of time and effort really focused on this. And again, we focused on how do our reps respond when our prospects are clearly, reading from a manual one of our competitors sent them. We talk about, we had our clients, we had some clients and case studies, and they were on stage for a panel, and they talked about how we're better and things that they've learned using competitor platforms, right? Again, this is a problem that's existed for a long time. And so having them hear that, and then we did an exercise where we asked them questions and asked them to respond, and we also played a game out of it. And then in addition to the 2 sessions where we actually led and gave them information. And so it was a huge area of focus. And when we think about education, it's not just at one event, it is continuing to send them as much content, easily accessible. We are just full disclosure, Crayon clients now. And so utilizing the solution and just a little plug there, but I'm loving that. And I've used it in my previous org as well. I've always found that really useful to just give them access where they need it most. And so again, it's not just a one and done at a company event. It's continuous. It's submitting case studies and having somebody else and reviews. And there's a huge initiative around this. I have a whole team of people that I'm working on hiring to really make sure that we're setting our reps up for as much success as possible in this area.
Cool. So I love the focus. Thank you for the plug. Keep it going. But I really like the accessibility that, like, you're going to just fill people's brains up at kickoffs or at particular events, or we're going to focus in on this competitor. And Lou Holtz used to say 10% of the people don't remember 10% of what you said to them 10 minutes after you said it, which is true. But you've got to have it in front of you. You got to have it accessible, and you got to have it updated on a regular basis. Zach, you're one of the most competitive people on God's green earth. What are your thoughts here?
I think there's a couple things that, as frontline sales managers, you need to be listening for from your reps. Like, if you're hearing, it's hard when you get maybe 1 or 2 degrees away from the sale to be hearing the sales conversations often. But if you're a frontline sales manager and you're hearing any competitors pop up more often than normal, one, bring that up often to leadership. I think if you have a product marketing team or a marketing team that's doing the competitive intelligence, you need to be bringing that up. And then 2, it's never been easier to coach sales calls and get customer stories with recording softwares. Like, when I started in sales, like, I had to hear a rep actively overcome an objection and then walk over and be like, hey, what did you respond with there? Or what did you, what did the client say? Now I can just search the name of the competitor and listen. So curating those stories, the customer stories, either where you're winning and you're hearing maybe a bad experience from a competitor, or, when a rep asks a really great question, and bringing those into your sales training is really powerful tool today. So as a frontline sales manager, I think you got to leverage that.
I love it. And you're not that old, dude. I mean, come on. Your conversational intelligence was probably entering the scene just as you were coming online. You're not that old. Come on. Love it. Get picky, focus, make it available. And yeah, I love that, your point though, kidding aside, leverage technology as best you can, because it's there, and help people and coach people. Love it. All right, let's see what we got here next. Come on, there we are. Okay. And this goes back to an earlier question, but we're going to get a little bit more granular here. How often do you mention specific competitors during the deal process? Does it help? Did the prospect bring them up? Do you bring them up first? And then, let's get down and dirty. When the opportunity gets gritty, how do you help keep your team focused on value and not getting lost into that price battle, and we got to get here and we got to get there? Dan, I'm going to come to you, because we literally came off a call an hour ago in which we were talking about some of this stuff. How do you handle some of this?
Yeah, this is a fun one, and it goes back to, I can't remember which one said it, but you should know the keywords that some of your competitors use. So do they call it a video hub, or do they call it a gallery? And it's different. And I know which competitors use the word gallery. Like, you need to know that, because then when a customer says it, and a lot of enterprise customers, I still haven't figured out why procurement cares about this, but they won't share who the competitor is. It's like a weird old school thing to me, but they still won't. And so when they say those keywords, then be like, oh, interesting. So I saw on your site you've been using Vimeo. It sounds like you've been chatting with them about that product. What do you like about their product? And just bring it up, and it shocks them. And then they're like, are you really like asking me how I feel about your competitor right now? And so I love bringing it up. It's my favorite to surprise them, especially when they're those people who won't say it. And then just ask them, like, what have you liked so far? And just have an open conversation, like you're helping consult with them to pick the best platform. That's my favorite thing. And then you just rely on your own messaging. If anything, I coach the reps not to say anything negative about your competitors, but you can say the positive things, because it shows that you're going to build trust with your customer more that way. So say like, oh, they're actually really good at this, or I've heard from some other customers that moved to us recently that they really liked this feature they used to have when they were on that platform, because then it gets in their mind that like they liked it, but they liked Vidyard better. So some positive messaging about what your competitors are good at is an interesting thing that I like using as well.
Cool. I like it. So you mix it up. I like it. You guys lean in a little bit. And yeah, you got to know the keywords and the key phrases that your competitors are using. So you don't have to ask, and then you can act and advise as you wish. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I love that he said, don't say anything negative. I try also to coach our team there. Get very frustrated actually when they badmouth the competition. I just don't think that most people don't appreciate that, at least not this day and age. So we actually found, and I tried to pull some data around this because I love these questions. And we found that at least in some of our recent wins, 80% of our recent wins, we were not the first to name the competition. So we let the client tell us who it is that they're talking to, or we understood, again, based on those keywords that we know our competition uses. And then we asked leading questions, things like, okay, so some of the legacy solutions, as an example in our space, they rely very heavily on professional services to run implementation. The user themselves or the admin themselves can't go into a platform, or it's very challenging for them to go into a platform and make changes. Some big enterprise companies want that. They're like, I'm good. I don't want to do anything myself. But other companies, especially understanding where we are in mid-market and top of mid-market and beginning of enterprise, actually they're like, it's 2022. I actually would love to be able to make some changes or all the changes myself. I don't want to wait on another team to do it. And so when we listen for specific things that when we understand who the competitor is, we ask them a simple question: how important is the ability to make, for the platform to be something that you can actually make changes to? And so like, even when they say it is important or isn't, or like something so simple, like we're not tricking them. We genuinely want to know if it matters to them. That helps us identify like, oh, okay, this is who you're talking to, or this is a talk track they've already led you to believe. And so, across the board, all our competition, we've actually also noticed a difference of if we go to market directly ourselves, or if we go through like one of our partners, or like a consultant that we've engaged in, or implementation partner, we call them. We've noticed a difference because oftentimes those people have already talked about the competition, and if they're recommending us, we're just a lot more open about talking about competitors. So the data is actually really challenging to find, but the data was different when it was like our go-to-market versus through a third party. How frequently we talked about competition and like very specific features, nitty-gritty. I think it's just been a different sales cycle for us. And so to me, that's an opportunity right now that we know that. And in preparing for this, I like learned something new that I can now take back to the team and arm them a little bit better. But we did see that if we're not the first to bring up competition, again, that doesn't mean we're not talking about it. Our clients are our prospects are bringing it up. But we're trying to get creative in a way where we're really not bad mouthing the competition, because everybody has a problem they solve differently, and maybe that's a better solution for that client, and that's okay too.
Absolutely. Zach, you've been in some pretty price sensitive, price competitive environments. How do you help reps get out of the we got to be at 30K to win this deal because so and so is, and that's like, how do you fight that?
Yeah, I like understanding what are the ancillary costs. So there is a time savings. Humans actually doing work costs the business money. So you want to create a cost to everything that you solve, and allow that to compound into something that's really meaningful. I think Dan brought up a great point earlier. It's not only like knowing who your competitors are, but knowing where they win, and almost putting them into buckets and being really transparent about who fits in those buckets as a customer. Hey, if you're looking for this, then maybe that is the right solution. Or if you're looking for the best price, then maybe that is the right solution. So I like to encourage reps to, one, build credibility and trust by pointing people in the right direction when it's appropriate, but two, asking the right questions to understand the ancillary costs around what you're solving that might not be like the direct thing they're coming to you for, but you can build a story around it to show them that, hey, it's a huge ROI if you use us over current or future tools that you're looking at.
Money. Any other comments on this one, gang? Really well done. Thank you. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Okay. How do you get out in front of this? We've talked a little bit about this already, but how do you get out in front of known competitor objections, questions, and the never-ending fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they're trying to drop into your prospect's head? Like, how do you, we talked a lot about reacting to it, or sort of at the strategic level prepping for it, but how do you stay out in front of this? Zach, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I go back to creating customer stories for every single persona you might talk to. And this is something that you can do individually as a rep. It's something that hopefully your marketing or product marketing team is working on, but listening to those sound bites is going to build a ton of confidence in why and how you're beating the competition. And as a rep, I think you've got to spend the time doing that. As a sales leader, you've got to spend the time doing that because you want to instill that confidence. I think, Anna, you mentioned something you did at your kickoff, which is, hey, we had customers sit there and tell their stories. And we used to do that at WordStream, John. And I felt like everyone walks away from that feeling like, wow, we can overcome any objection. Listening to those sales calls has the same output. So take the time to go and listen to sales call where competitors are coming up. I also really like reading competitors' case studies. What are the questions they're asking their customers to tee themselves up, right? Like, we only ask the questions to write our case studies that are going to make us look really good. So understand that, and then look at the answers and see what those sound bites look like from the customer. Another one that I've been doing more recently is listening to founders' interviews on podcasts and understanding where they're going. Who is that founder speaking to? And why are they positioning their product this way? Because you're going to get some sound bites that might tell you, hey, these clients are going way up market and they don't really want to service the mid-market or SMB company anymore. And like, I should know that because it's going to make me feel really good when I'm talking to the right customer for us. So I like to spend some time there. It's easy, it's good to know, and you get some great sound bites from it.
I love it. And with, coming back to your conversational intelligence, you can suck that into Chorus or Gong or whatever product you're using, and just grab for your teams the key snippets they need to hear, so they don't have to listen to the whole thing. Love that. Dan or Anna, on what's on top of this one in your mind?
Yeah. So a few things that kind of come to mind. So one, something as simple as a battle card or just a cheat sheet, or like, what's the one sentence? So you don't have to memorize everything. I mean, I want it to feel more organic, but if it doesn't for them or they're panicking, here's the thing you can say. And it's written in English where if they read it, it wouldn't sound like they're reading. It would sound like, right. Sometimes we in marketing, I'll admit, write things in a way that's like, someone read that, you'd be like, what? Right. So just a quick, like, one sentence thing of what to say. And then the thing that I love to do is show them, like, if they're trying to say like, oh, I heard Spiff can't do that, show them how we can do that. Like, show them how we do it differently or better, right? Like, and then point out the things that we are, like, we do better than that competitor that we now know without even naming their name, right? Like, there's certain things like, oh, okay, it sounds like that's important to you. Are some of the other partners you're looking into, right? Like, that's important. Are they able to help you with it this way, right? Like, put it back on the client sometimes and say, I'm not sure, like, I even understand why that's a question if I just showed you how to do this, right? Like, throw it back there. And you can do that in a really respectful way.
I love show, don't tell. Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Daniel?
I loved Zach's idea around the testimonials, and what we've done to make it super fast for rep to find right before a call is it's just a Google sheet that you can search by industry, by title, persona, and then their snippet, so that you can just grab those and include it in your presentation for a call. So it's just single slides. The reps can then ask product marketing, like, hey, we're missing a customer success persona in the manufacturing space. Can we find one of those? But we can also then say, hey, I just sold this deal. Here's some snippets that they gave me during the deal cycle, even, that we can use as a testimonial. Like, you don't have to make testimonials a 2-page document all the time. They can be simple. so that you join the call and just overcome that right away. And then just know what your customer or what your competitors are fighting on you, because for us, it's price. They're going to say we're the most expensive. So we just lead with that right at the beginning. Like, we're the most expensive because we're going to show you today how we're going to connect all your systems. Like, you just have to get ahead of it. And even if you don't know if you're in a competitive situation, just, be honest with your customers.
Yeah, I love that. So we also have testimonials, and we have what we call an advocacy hub, which is a place our sales reps can come and see, again, based on industry or company size or whatever the objection is or whatever the issue is. So it's a way to really arm them. And sometimes it happens during the call, and sometimes it's after, where they can send it to the client after. I think the other thing is, it's okay to say, like, that's interesting, let me take that back and think about how we solve that. I think sometimes when you're anywhere in life, right, when you're caught off guard, you just mumble a bunch of stuff, and that doesn't play well. And so again, I think in anywhere, especially in a sales situation, just leading with confidence and having the confidence to say, I don't know, but I know we have a solution, and let me get back to you.
Yep, really good stuff here. I mean, there was a question in the Q&A, and do you leverage battle cards? And you mentioned that, like, it's an often used term, but they're extremely valuable, because if you're using the right kind of organization to help you, thank you, Anna. Those can be dynamic. Those are constantly updated. You're keeping the right information in front of your frontline sales organizations. And absolutely, I'm with Dan. Zach, your point on, read what your competitors are saying, read how they're positioning themselves, and sort of know in advance, if they're going to be saying this is what we need to be saying in return. And then shrink it down to a size that's digestible for your organization. Okay, last one here on slides, and then we're going to pull in some from the field. Oh no, I got ahead of myself. Maggie, what do we got? We got something interesting from chat?
Yeah, absolutely. This was great, guys. Really appreciate it. I have been furiously taking notes on the side. So it's already helping me out. So we've gotten some great questions coming into the Q&A. If for everybody out there, if you still have questions, throw them in there. We'll try to get to them. If not, we can have somebody follow up after. So one of the first questions we had come through is, how much do you guys value internal win-loss interviews? Do you feel that reps, engineers, and other people in the company provide accurate insight? And then kind of like a sub question for that is, if you do value that information and information coming in from all around the organization, how do you kind of like feed that to the right people?
Yeah, I'd love to cover that one. I love these kind of interviews where we do the win-loss analysis, and then you pick out a couple of things that, like, let's get the AE to explain to product or to whoever it is what that is, what the issue was with that customer, and kind of walk through why we lost or why we won. There is risk in this that you have to be careful with, the recency effect. If the rep just lost a deal recently, that's going to be they think that's the only problem that product has right now, and you have to fix it. Where in reality, there's probably like 12 other problems that are much larger. And so you do have to be cautious with kind of which deal you're choosing and which rep you're bringing into the fold and that kind of thing. But setting expectations up front that, like, this is an interview to see whether we should dive deeper into this problem and evaluate a roadmap item for it. It's worked really well for us.
I like it. Doc?
Yeah, I love that as well. So we force win and loss reasons. Like, why did we win and why did we lose? And there's some drop downs. And then if you pick a specific drop down, you have to give us, like, that's not going to take too long, but a real why. We've set up a Slack channel where every executive and my product marketing team gets an alert in Slack as soon as it happens, where we're able to aggregate that data. And, like, if it's something we can learn from and teach the team right away, as opposed to waiting for it to happen again, we try to take that opportunity. I also love getting that feedback and interviews. So our reps are the ones who fill out the win-loss. But on many of our deals, especially as we move up market, we have a sales engineer as part of the deal as well. And so I always, especially in ones that, they don't really make sense, I reach out to the sales engineer. I'm like, all right, now honest opinion, what happened? Is it our fault? Is it sales process? And that, by the way, is a reason. It's hard for people to admit sometimes that they messed it up. Right. And so trying to get a sense of like, how do we help and how do we, it's not always about the competitor. Sometimes we lose against ourselves. Sometimes they choose nothing, no one at all. They go back to spreadsheets, which is very sad. Right. And so at the end of the day, that means we didn't prove value enough where for them, it's easier to just stay where they are. And there's just a ton of insights and learnings that I personally am a huge dork for this. So I personally love to hear through and then sort of arm the team to hopefully not make those mistakes again. And then we incorporate that as part of our new hire onboarding. I prefer to listen to calls where we lost because I think there's opportunities there to learn from it. Obviously wins are fun to watch and listen to, but I don't know, the ones where we lose and getting insight from everybody on the deal. I feel like I find that that's been really beneficial.
Cool. Really good. Maggie, interesting one on competitive renewals. How about we run through that one?
Yes, I was just about to say that. We had Morgan ask a great question, which was, any advice on competitive renewals? Do you ever bring a salesperson back in to resell a current customer when they're shopping around? And do you have a pricing strategy if pricing is the only reason that they're shopping around?
Ooh. Zach, you want this one, kid?
I would prepare by understanding the value we've added. I mean, obviously debriefing with the CS team, I would bring the rep back in because they have kind of that initial pain and information if they're still, around at renewal, obviously. The CSM, if you have those, are always a great resource in understanding where did we win over the last 12 months and if we stubbed our toe, what was it for and why, and what pain points have we hit? And then I think, something we had at WordStream that was great is we could really see the ROI we were providing pretty quickly. We kind of knew what their stats were when they started, and we kind of knew where they were when we were getting back for that renewal. That helps a ton. You don't always have that in your back pocket, but we were also sometimes competing against a free product. So that's challenging as well because there is a cost associated with working with us. So preparation's key in that. To Anna's point, bringing in the stakeholders and getting everyone that's been involved around a table to prepare for that is really important.
And there's the opportunity to leverage technology as well. You probably got the recording of why they originally bought. You've probably got if you're recording each of the CSM calls and where the value's been pressed forward. And Anna, you mentioned battle cards. Battle cards are not just for salespeople. Battle cards are for CSMs as well. So they're listening as well halfway through the contract year or months before the renewal. Hey, I'm starting to hear phrases that are, danger, warning here. Dan or Anna, anything further to add on the competitive renewal?
I'd say Zach covered most of what I was going to say. The only way we've added to that is kind of early on during the contract. There's a red alert button that literally emails the whole exec team, and you fill out why you're filling it out, and then an ask. So whoever wants to jump in and help with the deal. So it goes to the original rep, the CSM, all the leadership, all the sales leadership, and the sales managers. So it just gets all hands on deck to see what we can help with that customer. It's not always just competitor, it could be anything, but that's a great way. On the competitor side, it's usually just price. So challenge them, really understand what they're looking for. It goes back to discovery. Our CSMs are really well versed in renewals. They are, half salespeople essentially, so they handle it mostly themselves. And then the AE comes back in if it truly needs to be kind of resold.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I would say it depends on the reasoning, right? If that business has just continued to evolve and has a different problem that potentially we can't solve, or they don't know how we're solving it, we want to get an opportunity, just like it's as if it's part of a regular deal cycle, when they're a prospect, to understand what their challenge is, and try to help them understand the process. Like, you're already implemented here. Are you okay with a longer timeline if you go somewhere else? Or what is the actual issue? Because typically, if it's just a price thing, then maybe we haven't done a great job showing them why we're better, even as a customer. Like, they didn't get the value. If it's all about price, then it's a value play, right? I've purchased solutions that were more expensive than the competitor because they sold value. And it's hard to rip things out because they sell value. Like, if we use Salesforce, if a Salesforce competitor came to us to rip out and, go somewhere else, we would weigh our options. We wouldn't just say, oh, it's the price problem, right? Like, they've sold value. and we see value there. And then there's a pretty high cost at ripping it out, right? Like it's sticky. So I think it depends on the solution and depends on like why your customer bought in the first place. I think Dan and Zach mentioned that as well.
Cool. Hey, Maggie, I'm going to pick one last one out because I think it kind of is the flip side of the coin on this particular question here, which is, so you lost the first time and you lost to a competitor and it's a 1 year, deal. What's the right time to go back to them to see if you can win them back?
So we do 90. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I love this. I think the key thing here is operationalizing it because reps move around. So we have a field when you lose a deal that's contract start date or length from the competitor you lost to. So then that notifies the rep. It depends on the segment for us. It's like 6 months or 9 months, depending on the segment. But I love that, and it tends to work. If they failed their implementation, which you've got at least a 20% chance, because all of our retention rates, I'm sure, are around the same. So you've got that 20% chance that they're definitely canceling with that competitor. Let's get in there.
Love it.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. We have a filter, also try to automate it as much as we can, which is 90 days. So we want to go back to them in 90 days and again, it's not a sale per se. We're checking in, like, it's all right, we lost, but how are you doing on your new solution? Anything we can help you with? And sometimes even that just consultative, message, because sometimes they ask questions, right? And things we can help them. And so we do, because at the end of the day, another month might go by and they're like, never mind, we made a mistake. There's no reason to me, we're selling to humans. And so just having a little bit of empathy, the fact that we know how to solve a problem they have, and just giving them answers sometimes, but reaching out. And for us, it's 90 days. And then we also have a go back again at the year mark or right before the year mark when we think they're probably about to renew. So those two.
I love that point, because you can go to them, in your world, you can go to them and say, oh, how are the spiffs running? Like, are you getting a lot of success from the contest you're running? And when they're like, I don't know, they're not really working, be like, oh, I'm happy to chat about best practices for spiffs. And then you've got a conversation going and you're now their consultant and you just waited out.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, just not minimizing the problem we're solving. Like, it's a complex problem. Implementing and pulling together compensation plans is not the easiest task. And sometimes people just want to have someone to talk to about it. And so just being there, and we understand they're going with a competitor. Maybe, again, if they're happy, that's where they'll go. Sometimes just having them take time to talk to us means something's not right. And let's keep that relationship going.
And back to some earlier points you all made. By the way, Zach Rego lost power in Raleigh, so hopefully it's coming back on. He didn't just leave us here. He'll come back on.
We weren't boring him too much, hopefully.
Exactly. See, here he comes. Is staying focused on that value, like remembering, okay, they went to this particular competitor for a reason. Hi, Zach. Good to see you again.
Sorry, lost power for a second. It's back.
That's okay. We'll get your generator. But stay focused on that value. So at Crayon, we take every one of those losses, we put them into a database, we load them into a sequence for our BDRs, and they're on them on 90 days, 180, and the CSMs are jumping in with a good 3 months out with around the approximate renewal date. And we're trying to say, hey, we've got these new features, or we've added this whole new product line. This has changed since the year we last talked. Some of these things were important to you. Would you like to take another look? And you know what? Even if you can just nick your competitor down a couple of notches on price or value or what have you, that's still a fun win along the way. So, well, listen. Let me get my screen back up here. And first of all, thank you for everyone who attended the webinar. We had great attendance, great stick rate on all of our attendees, and especially Anna, Zach, Dan, for your participation. I literally texted Maggie during this thing and I said, my entire company needs to hear this webinar because there was such knowledge dropped in this one here. So fantastic fantastic 55 minutes with each of you. Maggie, is that anything else we need to cover off on?
Nope, we're all set. Yeah, just echoing a huge thank you to all of you guys for being here and for the panelists for participating. And just a reminder that we'll send out a recording. Yeah, this has been great and we really appreciate everybody's time. Now go out there and win some deals.
Absolutely. Get our more than our fair share. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.